we think we're great at multitasking. We think we can have a TV show on in the background and music in our headphones and a project in front of us and a person next to us who might talk to us every once in a while and a snack on the desk and all these things and work on, 3 different things at once. You can't do that. If you think you can, you're wrong.
Hey everybody, before we start the show, I want to make a couple disclaimers. This show does cover a wide variety of topics related to mental health and life in general, and some of those could be sensitive for you. I want to simultaneously encourage you to be brave in consuming difficult content, but also respect and recognize your limitations. So please use your best judgment. I will never be offended if you need to skip a question or an episode entirely, but feel free to feel it out, check out the episode, and just see what happens. If you need to skip, that's okay, but feel free to give it a shot first. I also need to say that while I am a psychologist, I'm not your psychologist, and I'm not your therapist. This is not intended to be direct medical advice, and you should not use this as a substitute for professional help. So with those said, let's go ahead and get into the show.
All right. Hello, friends of all varieties. This is the Hardcore Self-Help Podcast, episode 352. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Duff, aka Duff the Psych. I make mental health content for real people, just like you. Today, we are going to be re-releasing an old episode. I do this every so often because there are some old episodes that I think bear repeating. They get kind of lost in the shuffle since most podcast players only show, say, the most recent 100 episodes. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be repeating an old episode, which was 20 tips for staying focused. And this is relevant to me because I've been doing a lot of writing this week. So I want to talk a little bit about what this week has looked like for me, and then we'll go ahead and jump into that prior episode for your listening pleasure. This week has been a little bit strange because I had an issue where my psychology license lapsed. And there used to be a bit of a grace period in terms of just the policy for California psychologists where, if it lapsed and you get it figured out within the next month, it's no big deal. You can continue practicing, but they have made some changes where that was not okay. So I had to essentially stop practicing this week, which is unfortunate because if I don't work, I don't make money. And this is a month where there's been a lot of cancellations anyway, so things were pretty tight. I'm like, fuck, okay, this sucks. But when I find myself in unfortunate circumstances that I didn't anticipate, one of the things I like to really ask myself is, what does this allow me to do? And it's a question that's really helped me out a lot in the past. And so this week I'm like, okay, I don't have any testing cases, which take up the bulk of at least 3 days a week. And I'm without a lot of therapy cases that take up other time. So I have all of this time where I'm not able to work and earn money. So what does that allow me to do? Well, it allows me to spend a lot of time writing. I've been working on my next book for a while, but unfortunately I haven't had a lot of time to sort of spend several hours at a time going through it. An hour here, hour there, little bits and pieces, which is fine. But it's been quite a while since I've been able to lock down and really do the deep work that really facilitates writing books. And so that's what I've done this week. I blocked out time. I have, set aside 2 or 3 hours at a time to really, really do a lot of writing. So the book I'm working on is right now I'm calling it Bipolar Answers. I'm not sure if that's going to be the final title or not, but it's the first in a series of books that I'm going to do where I'm taking things that I've covered on the podcast and converting them to book format. So basically real questions from people about bipolar that I'm answering and also expanding upon. So I'm taking, information that I've given in the podcast and expanding upon it further. And that's been really good. So I think I've written something like 12,000 words this week so far. So I've essentially doubled the work that I've done, which has been awesome. And now I'm really motivated to keep going. So this is teaching me that I need to, in the future, block out large swaths of time that I could spend writing, because this is really where I excel in that regard. But I think the book is going to be extremely helpful. As I'm continuing to write more and more in it, it's great because each of the questions are giving me an opportunity to expand and include more information that people would find helpful. So for instance, I have little info boxes and graphics and tables, such as a table comparing and contrasting borderline personality disorder with bipolar, hypomania versus mania. I have, a guide to a journaling method for bipolar. I have tips for how people can support somebody with bipolar, the diagnostic criteria, and then anything else that pops up in the specific questions as it's related. So, for example, there's a question where someone talks about a bit regarding gender identity. So I include a box about lots of different gender terminology. There's a question that talks about how bipolar might impact somebody's libido. And so I include information about the asexuality spectrum. And it's just really a good opportunity to flesh out these things, and through the process of answering questions, actually give you all the information you need about bipolar, bipolar 2, bipolar unspecified, etc. So if you're interested in that for yourself or for somebody else, please continue following along with, me here on social media, on the mailing list, because I'm motivated to really get this thing done. I think it's going to be a helpful work for a lot of people. So hopefully that'll be coming in the not too distant future. Anyway, that's what I've been up to. I've been really trying to find a silver lining here with the way this week has worked out. And one of the other ways that I'm kind of being easy on myself and facilitating the writing process is finding a good old episode to give you guys again. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to dive into the episode of 20 tips for focusing. I hope that it's helpful for you. I thought it was pretty relevant as I've been trying to work on a lot of things to keep myself focused and really as productive as possible with writing. So take care, enjoy this episode, and I will see you for the next one. So I have 20 tips here that I want to talk about that might apply to your situation that you can use to be more productive and less frustrated. This is hilarious, but I was working on this last night, sitting on the couch with my wife, and I'm like, okay, I'm done. Oh, crap. No, let me count these. That's 19. Okay, I have 19 tips. I can't do 19 tips. This has to be 20. So I had to think of another one. But these are all good things. And as I said, this will apply whether you have, significant clinical attention difficulties or you're just, a normal human during the time of, COVID and other things. And it's like, how do I focus on what I'm supposed to focus on? So I'm just going to go through. These are in no particular order, and I'm just going to go through one by one and sort of riff on each of them. These are things that both I've seen for myself individually, things that I've seen work for clients of mine, and things that I know, clinically are good tips all around. So first one, this is a bit of an obvious one, but limit distractions, right? So limit distractions. We are not great at coping with distractions in general. And when you have ADHD or other attention difficulties, as I said, your attention is basically always on search mode. It's looking around for something to hone in on, whether that's your phone, whether that's a book nearby, whether that's a painting on the wall, whether that's distracting things outside or, kids playing in the distance, whether that is a movie playing on the TV next to you, a YouTube video playing on your phone, anything like that. These are all distractions that are going to make it harder for your attention to find what it's actually supposed to be looking for. And so when you don't have those distractions limited, when you don't take those things out of your environment, you're actually really, really asking a lot of your attention and a lot of your willpower because you sort of have to brute force through it. The common scenario is you're working on something and then you realize, oh, I got distracted by this thing over here. My phone vibrated and now I'm playing with that and, doing this other thing. And then you go, oh, crap. Okay, hold on. Let me shake it off. Okay, but what was I focusing on? What was I focusing on? Okay, go. Right? And every time you do that, it just pulls you out of it. And so removing those opportunities to be distracted can be very, very helpful. And there's a variety of ways to do that. You can try to take things away. You can add things in. There's a lot of different ways to try to reduce distractions. A lot of it's going to be environmental, but, it could be things like, putting even earplugs in so you don't hear things in the background that could be distractions. Could be going to a different location if the location you're in is distracting and that's something that you're able to do. This is directly leading into tip number 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and hop into tip number 2. But adjust your space, adjust your physical space. Right now I'm looking around my desk and I have a lot of different stuff. I have little notes. I have my phone over here. I have a camera. I have some headphones. I have some journals. Some stuff on the bed behind me. I have lots of different stuff here. And if I was somebody who had worse attention than I do right now, these things would all be potential distractions for me. And there is a lot to be said for sort of out of sight, out of mind. Again, trying to not rely so much on your willpower and instead set yourself up for success. So if you have some deep work to do, you might want to actually like remove your phone, like not have it with you, or put it on airplane mode, turn it, put it somewhere else on the other side of the room. Putting it right next to you and just resolving to not look at it is not going to work. That's like having an open bag of chips when you're taking a 2-hour drive and trying not to eat any of them. Like, it's not going to happen. You're really, really asking way too much of your willpower. So getting it out of the way or really, really adjusting its presence in some way is going to be helpful. Even if you don't have it on, like, so say I have my phone right here next to my keyboard and it's on airplane mode. Just the fact that it's there is going to be distracting for me because my brain is used to checking it for stuff. It's used to looking over at it. And by getting it out of my line of sight, I'm going to be thinking about it a whole lot less.
All right, this episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. This week, as I mentioned, has been an odd one for me, and it has allowed me to really, really see the contrast between a week where I'm spending the majority of my time helping other people versus focusing on myself. And it's pretty interesting. I think for a lot of us, it's very easy to get caught up in what everybody else needs and not take a moment to think about what we need from ourselves, whether that's physically, emotionally, downtime, uptime, whatever it might be. And we could be left feeling stretched thin and burned out. And so one of the things that I think is really helpful for that is therapy. Therapy can give you tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. So if you want to try therapy, BetterHelp is a great option for that. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a quick questionnaire, and that'll get you matched with a licensed therapist, not self-help or anything like that, a licensed therapist. And if you find that it's not a good match, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So join me in finding more balance with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/duff today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/duff for 10% off your first month. All right, let's get back to the show. Same thing goes for digital space. So physical space, clearing your workspace on the desk you might be using, clearing the environment around you, the room you're in, different things like that, and adjusting your space to facilitate you paying attention to the one thing that you should be paying attention to is very helpful. But this also works digitally, right? So if your desktop on your computer or your home screen on your phone is super cluttered, if you have all these apps that are easy to flip through. I don't know if you've ever done this, but sometimes I go, oh, I need to go write that down on my phone, flip it open, and suddenly I'm in Instagram. Like, how did I get here? And what was it I was here to do again? Oh, crap, I can't remember, right? So you can adjust your digital space too. One thing that I do is I don't put, these social apps on the first page of my phone. People are way better than me at organizing things. Like if you looked at my phone, it looks very chaotic compared to like my wife's phone, which looks very pretty. It has all these widgets and quotes and nice things like that. But for me, what works is getting the stuff that I shouldn't be going to immediately and impulsively off to a later screen. So I have to swipe over to get to it and stuff like that. That's one example of how you can sort of adjust your digital space as well as your physical space. But really, really, really try to limit the things that are there that could be distracting for you. And you might need to do this when you're not already working, or start a very low risk task, like a low stakes task, like sit down at your desk at work or at home, whatever your sort of common situation is that you're having trouble with distraction. Sit down and start something that's not like the most important project in the world, but just start it. And then notice each time you get distracted, what you're getting distracted by. So maybe this is just like getting back to emails or something like that. So you open up your desktop, you start getting back to emails and you realize, oh, suddenly I'm on Reddit. So you maybe need to figure out how you can block Reddit on your browser at work while you're working. And then you're working. Oh, my phone's vibrating. Okay, I need to get this out of my line of sight and turn it on airplane mode or something like that. Working. Oh, I'm staring outside at these people who are, going for a run, thinking about how nice it would be to be outside. Okay,
Maybe I need to change the direction I'm facing, or put up something so I can't be looking at that at the very moment that I'm working. These are all examples. It's going to be personal to you, but if you can sort of do a trial run and take note of each of these things as they pop up, that will give you a little bit of sort of an audit to do on your environment so that you can remove some of those things. And we're not trying to make it this like you work in this, little white box with no inputs at all. That might be actually unrealistic and not good for you. But you do need to remove the things that are actively distracting to you, because you're going to give yourself a better shot at being able to focus if you're not constantly having to redirect yourself from other things. That gets exhausting, you get mentally tired, and then your attention gets even worse. So tip number 3, do not multitask. I know you think you're good at multitasking, but you're not. You're not. We do not do well with multitasking. Humans in general, we don't. This has been shown time and time again with research. We like to think we do. We really like to think we do. We like to think we're great at multitasking, and you can certainly be better at multitasking than other people. But when we multitask, we're essentially asking our brains to really quickly switch between tasks without losing our place. Now, there are a few things that we can literally do simultaneously, things like muscle memory tasks and stuff like that. Like if you play the drums, for instance, you're not rapidly switching back and forth between kick and snare and hi-hat and toms and all this stuff. Like it's happening through muscle memory, and it is happening simultaneously. And there's a million parallels for other types of things that you might do very, very often. But we think we're great at multitasking. We think we can have a TV show on in the background and music in our headphones and a project in front of us and a person next to us who might talk to us every once in a while and a snack on the desk and all these things, and work on, 3 different things at once. You can't do that. If you think you can, you're wrong. And if you can do it, you're not wrong. You can do it, but it's way less efficient than if you were to just focus on one thing. Stick to one thing. And again, like I said, research has shown this time and time again. We're not good at doing multiple things back and forth. I can certainly try to convince myself of this. I do all the time. But when it comes down to it, when you actually look at it and measure it, we're not good at multitasking. So don't try. Really, really, really try to force yourself to work on one thing at a time. And this might be even something like, when we're combining the two, adjusting your digital space and limiting distractions, and then try not to multitask. If you're working on writing, don't have your email open in another tab. That's one simple thing that you can do, because when you have the email open in another tab, you're going to switch to it to check it out, or anything that has some sort of notifications. You're going to switch to it to check it out. And then if you see something there, you're going to get distracted by it. And then you're going to come back to the other thing, and it's going to take you longer to get back on track with the other thing you were focusing on. So really, really, really try not to multitask, because it taxes your brain. And while it might be satisfying for you and less boring for you, it is less efficient. And that might be okay. You might be able to get away with not being very efficient and just sort of enjoy your time, kind of like, going along with lots of distractions and not being very effective at any one of those things you're doing. But if you're in a place where you're struggling because you can't be quite as effective in what you want to do, you're going to want to limit multitasking. So don't try to do multiple things at once. And if you catch yourself doing multiple things at once, try to rein it in. What I will say about multitasking is that it is made a bit easier by my number 4 tip, which is, here it comes, practice mindfulness meditation. I wish there was some statistic on how often I mention mindfulness in the podcast, but practice mindful meditation frequently, if not daily. So in a nutshell, mindfulness meditation is giving yourself the chance to be still, be quiet, and focus intensely on a particular stimulus. Your breath, a candle flame, the feelings in your body, a sound, anything like this. Focusing intently on that. And then when you have distractions that pop up, as we all do, a stray thought, a feeling, a concern, thinking about something else, narrating to yourself, any of this, your job is to not push it away, not fight back and call it bad. Ugh, don't think about that. Stupid brain, don't do that. Instead, try to get more and more efficient at just pulling it out, noticing it, and then letting it flow on and focusing back on what you're trying to focus on. And in a very real way, there's a lot of
spirituality wrapped up in this, when it comes to Eastern philosophy and things like that. But from the neurological standpoint, it's all about that efficiency of where you place your attention. And so practicing mindfulness, it is a skill. It is something that requires practice, not just once or twice, but consistently. You can get better and better at controlling where your attention goes. And more so than that, again, I don't want you to be trying to multitask, but when you do have a distraction that intrudes into what you're doing, by practicing mindfulness frequently, you're able to be less derailed by that. You're not going to sink all of your attention into that thing and then have to come back to the other task and then be lost. You get better at going, okay, I see that there. That's for later. Okay, let that go. Focus back on what I'm doing. And the quicker you can get at that, the less lost time there is, and the more you're able to stay on task. So I really think that mindfulness meditation is a beneficial thing. And there has been research done on this that it is helpful, especially for people with ADHD. And this goes beyond just purely, attention to tasks, but it can also be, if you have ADHD, you're likely also a little bit hard on yourself. You might have some depression or anxiety. You probably get frustrated with yourself for the things that you do that you don't see other people doing, or the things that get in the way of your work or school or your personal life. And so mindfulness can also help you to be less derailed by those negative emotions that pop in. So you're working, you get distracted, and you get pissed off at yourself that you're distracted. Instead, you can just sort of be like, oh, whew, that happened again. Okay, mindfulness. Let's get back to what we're doing. Boom. Get back to it, right? But that takes practice. So practicing that mindfulness meditation frequently. If you want to know more about that, you can just Google Duff the Psych mindfulness, or go on my website, duffthepsych.com, and put mindfulness into the search bar, and you'll find some resources about that. Okay, so moving on. Tip number 5, and this might turn into a very long episode with the pace that I'm going. So if you need to break this up into multiple chunks, please feel free. Number 5 is journal or plan every day. I really, really, really am a fan of this, whether or not you have attention problems, honestly, but it becomes even more important the more difficult that attention and productivity is to you. It becomes more important for you to do. So start every day with some journaling, or writing out an agenda, or planning. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I've written about my favorite journaling technique, but I'm a big fan of just writing down, 3 to-dos for the day, 3 things that you can do that would make you satisfied by the end of the day. You might do more than that. You might do less than that. Probably not less than that, but you might do more than that. And, that's okay. That's all bonus. But just focus on what are these, 1, 2, or 3 things that you can get done today that would make you feel satisfied. Not giant things like figure out my life, get a job, but specific, discrete things that you can do that you would be satisfied with yourself at the end of the day if you were able to complete. But whatever form it is, write some roadmap for your day, write some sort of plan. Think about, okay, what is it that I need to remember today? Look at yesterday. What are things that I forgot yesterday? What is my focus for today? What does my day look like? What am I going to do first? What am I going to do next? You don't have to go hour by hour, but broadly, morning, afternoon, night. Am I at home? Am I at work? Am I with the kids? Am I with my family? Whatever the case is, sort of write that out and plan it and start your day with that. If instead you just start the day and let the day take you wherever it goes, you're going to be playing catch up. You're going to be like, okay, what was it I was supposed to do next? Okay, I don't know. I feel like, shoot, I'm just going to do this instead. You're really leaving yourself at the mercy of your bouncy attention and the fact that your day tends to just sort of yank you along and take you wherever it wants you to go. So journal and plan every day. Start the day with that. Just bake that into your morning routine. It doesn't have to be long and excessive, but at least give yourself a chance to check in and think about what it is you're doing with the day. And then with that, number 6 is check your planner, your journal, whatever you're using. Check it 3 times per day, at least. Starting the day with it and then going along is good, but you're often going to get off track. And so giving yourself a scheduled time, it could be with your meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, or after dinner, if that's better for you. 3 times per day, pull open your journal, pull open whether it's an app or physical notebook that you use to sort of plan out your day, and check in with it. How am I doing for the day? Is there anything that I forgot that I had put on the list? Do I need to adjust anything? It just kind of gets your mind back on and, puts your head on straight and gets you on track. If you don't check in on it, anything can happen. So check your planner at least 3 times a day and make that a habit. It's something that's baked into your routine. Maybe you need to make a notification for it on your phone, like an alarm, or maybe it's just, like I said, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Whatever it is, get in the habit of it and continually do that so that you're just used to it. And if you can build that habit, then you don't have to focus as much on each individual to-do item or important thing to consider for the day, because you have that habit of looking at your planner and you already put that stuff in there at the beginning of the day. So your only job is to keep that habit of looking at the planner. And then when you open it up, you'll see those individual items and that'll spur your memory or whatever you need to do for that particular day. Number 7, set yourself up with an outline before leaving a task. This is a big one. Again, when you have to abandon a task for a little bit, when you say, this is a basic example, but say you're writing something and you have to go to the bathroom. Well, what are you going to do when you come back? Are you going to sit down and go, let me check my phone. Let me check my email. Let me check this. Let me check that. Let me pull up a new music to do. Let me pull up a video. Okay. I'll get back to work. What was I doing? Oh, crap. I was, let's see. Let me go backwards and find where I was left off. That's so much time and so much effort spent, right? If instead you're like, ooh, okay, I got to go pee. Okay. Let's see. Let me write out just 2 bullet points about what I need to do as soon as I get back. Okay. So I started writing this grant letter. When I get back, I need to look up the name of the person that I'm sending this to at this company. And I need to, download, I don't know, some plugin or something like that. These are arbitrary examples, but give yourself that little roadmap so that you leave. And then when you come back, you sit down and you see your bullet points and you're like, okay, what was I doing? Oh, that's what I was doing. Let's jump straight back in. Let's find the email for that person at the company, right? So I do this all the time when I'm writing, like for writing books, because if I come back and I don't know what I was working on, I'm going to have to sort of retroactively go back and try to retrace my steps, or I might just go off in a totally different direction. So just, for me, it's like, okay, when you come back, finish this description and then go on to talking about case examples, something like that. And this can be for things other than writing as well. If you're working on a piece of art or a physical project or a thing around the house, I definitely do that around the house as well. It's like, okay, I need to go pick up something from the store. But when I get back, I'm still working on cleaning. So I say, okay, when I come back, put the groceries away, then get back to this load of laundry and start on the floors. So I at least have a roadmap for myself when I get back. Very, very helpful, because we can't count on your brain to look for the right thing, because it's going to be begging for some other distraction. And if you limited distractions, you might not find something, but chances are, your attention is still going to find something other than the thing you should be working on to focus on. So leave yourself an outline, give yourself, just a little bit. You don't need to be excessive, but just give yourself a little bit of direction when you come back so that you have somewhere to go once you sit down and get back to that task. Now, this is one that I don't see a lot of people doing, but I am a huge fan of keeping a notebook nearby or a piece of paper or a whiteboard, anything, but make it physical. Don't make it an app on the phone. Make it physical, but keep something nearby for impulsive thoughts. When you're working on something, when you're trying to focus on something, you're inevitably going to have impulsive thoughts like, oh, that's right, I forgot, I need to do this. Or, oh, that's right, I need to call this person or get back to this person. Or, oh, that's right, I just remembered the show I wanted to watch tonight. Anything. You're going to have lots of those. But all of those can wait. Those aren't important when you're working on what you're trying to focus on, right? Those are not important in that moment. But you get so worried that you're going to forget them that it makes you sort of just like roll them around in your brain and rehearse them so you don't lose them, which is very distracting and it makes you not productive. So even if you use an app on your phone or computer or like a huge, planner or something for your big to-do lists and appointments and all those things, That's not what this is about. This is about having just a scrap piece of paper or a pocket journal or a notebook or a whiteboard there for those immediate things that pop up, right? So as I'm recording this, if I need to, I can reach right back here. I can grab this notebook. I can grab a pen and I could go, oh, that's right. Remember to record the ad spot when I'm done. And then I can set that off to the side so that when I'm done with this, I can go, okay, so what was it that I remembered when I was in the middle of recording the podcast? Right? So you don't have to go multiple steps. Make it as frictionless as possible. And don't keep that note. don't, that's the other things. You don't want to have sticky notes all over your monitor and your walls and stuff like that. Don't keep that little note. That's just your scratch piece for right then. Once you finish working on what you're working on, then give yourself the chance to look at that note and put those things where they need to go. If there's a to-do from there that needs to go on your main to-do list, then put it on your main to-do list, wherever you keep that. If there's something on there that can be done immediately, then go ahead and do it immediately. But it's something that can wait. You don't need to do it right when you're in the middle of doing something else. But you also need to just try to hold it in and remember it and rehearse it in your brain. Have a notebook nearby for those impulsive thoughts and just put them on paper when they come to you. Okay, number 9. Force yourself to prioritize. A big thing with people who have ADHD, also people who have anxiety, is sort of just like not knowing, what the right thing to do at any given time is. What should I do right now? What should I do? You need to get some practice at forcing yourself to prioritize. That's why in like my journaling method, I don't let people have any more than 3 to-dos for the day, because that forces you to prioritize. Okay, what are the things that are going to make the biggest impact here? What are the things that I'm going to be most satisfied with? Not necessarily what are the things that are most important in the broad scheme. Again, you're not going to say, okay, today I'm going to figure my life out. No, but if making an appointment to go see the doctor is like the most important thing, then that's a great one to put on there. If researching and figuring out how long it's going to take to get to this place you need to travel to, that would be a thing too. Whatever it is, you need to start forcing yourself to prioritize. And that's going to get you to put your ducks in the right order. And then you're just going to start knocking them out one by one. And in some cases, if things are of equal importance, then just pick one at random. That's fine. But give yourself that priority. Say, okay, this priority doesn't matter, but I'm going to do this first. I'm going to do this second. I'm going to do this third. But forcing yourself to prioritize helps you to not just have this giant field of possible activities in front of you that your brain's going to be like, ooh, okay, let's do this. No, let's do this. Okay, no, let's do this. And just be all over the place with. Instead, you're going to be forcing yourself to really think about what you want to do and giving yourself, permission to pick out things that are more important than others. And that's sort of your focal point. And then again, all these other tips are keeping you on that focal point rather than allowing you to stray from that and stick on other things. Let's see. Number 10. This is a simple one, but it's a very, very difficult thing sometimes. If you take it out, put it back. And this is mostly in your physical situation. So in your house, take something out of the fridge, you take something out of the closet, whatever it is. If you take it out, put it back. You just got to keep that as a mantra. If you took it out, put it back, because what tends to happen is you're going to have cups and glasses all over the place. You're going to have open packages of things, trash that didn't get put away. This even applies to like drawers that were opened and not closed and things like that. And you want to just keep repeating the mantra to yourself. Okay, if you take it out, put it back. And so always get in the habit of putting things back. And if you notice that you didn't put something back, just do it right then. Put that back. You don't need to be leaving things strewn about, because that gives your attention more things to be distracted by. And that goes against the limiting distractions and adjusting your space tips here. So if you take something out, put it back. At the same time, you're not supposed to multitask, right? So don't take out 12 different things. Take out one thing at a time. Okay, tip 11. Try not to procrastinate. I know that's easier said than done, but a simple rule of thumb is if it takes less than a minute to do it, just do it, right? If it's something like, oh, I need to go clip my nails, or, oh, I need to go take the dog out, or, oh, I need to, check my calendar really quick to see what time this appointment is. If it takes less than a minute, do it. With the caveat that you don't need to do it if you're in the middle of something else important, right? So if you're working on your main focal point, something that you're actually supposed to be working on, and you realize you're procrastinating something else, but it can wait, that goes on your little impulsive thoughts log that you keep nearby. That can wait. But if you're just, sort of walking around the house, kind of doing one important thing and unimportant thing and another, and you realize, oh, I forgot to do this, or oh, this needs to get done, and it's going to take less than a minute, just do it. Don't wait, because if you put it off, you're going to forget about it. So if it takes less than a minute, do it. Another kind of physical one is keep a place for your small things. It's very, very common for people who have ADHD to lose items, misplace things like their keys, their phone, their wallet, hair clips, whatever might be your sort of common things that you take with you places. So, it's a simple thing, but you could keep a bowl next to the front door, and that's where your small things go. Again, with all of these things, you're trying to build a habit. You don't want to think, where's my phone? Where's my wallet? Where are my keys? Where's this? Where's that? You want to train the habit of, oh, this is where I put my stuff. So you don't have to think about each of those individual things. You just have to remember, where do I put my bowl with all my small things in it? And that's where your small things are. It can be a challenge to get used to that, but if you can do it, it's best to keep all the things together rather than having, a hook for your keys over here, a stand for your sunglasses over there, a dock for your phone over here. Having one place for all those common items is helpful. And on that note, I think it's also very helpful to sort of make for lack of a better term, a mise en place. I probably said that wrong, but this is what they call it in the culinary world. It's a French term. I think it just means in its place or something like that. Sorry, French people. But it's basically a term for your setup. So a chef in a restaurant is going to have their mise en place. They're going to have their knives in the right place, all set out, sharpened, ready to go. They're going to have their salt, their pepper, their garlic, their easy sort of condiments and things like that all laid out in the bowls the way they're supposed to be. They're going to have their plating plates off to one side. They're going to have their cleaning stuff off to another side. Everything's going to be set up just so that they know exactly where it is and they can go and they can be efficient. In the same way, I think that it's really helpful to have sort of a mise en place for your workplace. So whether that's at home or at an actual office, have yourself set up. This is where my drink goes. If you have a phone, this is where it goes somewhere else on the other side of the room. This is where, my notebook stand is, so I can put stuff there to look at while I'm, referencing it for the computer. Having, a few small things set up so that it's easier for you to just dive straight into work. Whatever you need, try to have it set up beforehand so that when you sit down or get there, you can just dive straight into it. So think about, what is your sort of mise en place for your workspace? What does that entail? And how can you set yourself up so that you don't have to just start from scratch each time and find each individual thing? You can even go as far as to marking things off, using, marker or tape or different small boxes, lots of different ways you can sort of organize this, but having a literal place for different things. One thing that's worked for me in the past for headphones, big over-ear headphones. I don't have this right now, but in previous desks, I had a hook that I would hook those on so that's always there ready to go. Other things, you just want to have it set up so that your mise en place is ready and you can sit down and get to work. Moving away from the physical stuff, tip number 14 is use neutral inputs to satisfy your attention hunger. Let me explain what I mean. So if you're somebody who is, has a legitimate ADHD diagnosis, your attention is very hungry. It wants to find something to latch onto. Often that's not the thing that you want it to latch onto, but it's looking for something to latch onto. And one thing that can help it chill out and not be so hungry for finding something to attend to can be to give it just a little bit of stimulation. Too much stimulation is legitimately distracting, right? If you're convincing yourself that you can, watch The Office while you write a term paper, you're probably incorrect. But having something like white noise, or for instance, instrumental music without lyrics, you got to think about lyrics, right? If you have music with lyrics, your brain is processing that language while you might be doing something else that requires your brain to process language, like writing or reading. Those are competing inputs, and that doesn't make a lot of sense, and it makes it more difficult. And so you're really going to have to switch back and forth rather than being able to sort of flow through it. So using more neutral inputs, It can be anything. It could be, like I said, instrumental music. It could be white noise. It could be sound effects. It could be the sounds of being, actually in a given location, like being at a coffee shop or something like that, where it's sort of just a wall of sound that doesn't give you anything to latch onto and pay attention to, but it does give you enough input so that your attention isn't just flipping out looking for something to pay attention to. So you need to be careful with that. Use neutral inputs, ones that are not actually going to really fully pull your attention, but ones that are going to satisfy some of that need that you feel like you have to multitask without actually causing it to multitask, if that makes sense. Tip number 15, take breaks for movement. This is a pretty simple one, but take breaks for movement. If you are on the more hyperactive side of ADHD, and as an adult, you're probably not like the same sort of hyperactive you see in kids. You might be, but often it presents a little bit differently. But you might start getting really, really antsy when you're working. And so you might need to move a bit. You might need to take breaks and actually go, do a few small exercises or go for a quick walk or, even just go to the bathroom and throw some water in your face, jump up and down a few times, get a little short burst of fresh air. Any of these things, take breaks while you're working if you need to, rather than allowing yourself to sort of sit there and get more and more and more uncomfortable and try to fight through it and get distracted by the fact that you're uncomfortable and really utilize all the willpower you have left to just keep yourself in your seat. Feel free to take some movement breaks, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it. I'm a fan of, both allowing you to have movement while you're working. So, whether that's rocking your chair, sitting on a ball that you could bounce on, things like that, and taking breaks specifically for movement. But what I will say is do what works for you, because if you get distracted by the movement while you're working, then stop doing that. And instead work for a while, then take a break and give yourself a little bit of movement and come back to it. But it's very legitimate that you might have some energy that you just need to get out, and that's okay. Number 16. It's let me just say what the tip is and then I'll explain it. So number 16 is abort when you're in too deep. Okay, so abort when you're in too deep. What I mean by this is sometimes when you're working, you'll find that, okay, you start off with one tab on your browser. And then you go, oh, let me look this thing up. Then you have another tab on your browser. And then you're like, oh, I want to listen to some music. So let me pull up Spotify or YouTube or whatever. And then you go, oh, here, I'm going to save this video for later. So you pull that off into another tab. But no, I'm focusing on music right now. So let's find that music. Oh, what are the lyrics to this? Okay, let me look at the lyrics in another tab. And then you go, oh, I got a notification. Let me pull that up. Okay. And then suddenly you have like 35 tabs open. And there are parallels to non-digital life as well. If you're working on physical things, whatever. It often is the case that you realize you're in so deep and you're like, oh shit, what was I even doing? What was I working on in the first place? Oh gosh, okay, let's see. And you kind of got to go back through and try to get yourself back on track. What I like doing is when that happens, just abort. Like if we're using the browser example, the web browser, just click the X, start over. Go right back to square one. And this is great if you have your agenda with you, the planner, the journaling that we talked about earlier. If you have that with you and you need to use that to figure out where you should be focusing your attention, then go ahead. If it doesn't automatically come to you. But either way, when you're like, oh crap, I'm in so deep, I'm forcing myself to multitask, I'm distracted, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, just like declare bankruptcy, close everything out, or leave the environment that you're in, go somewhere else, just sort of wipe the slate clean and abort for a minute, and then come back to one thing instead of opening everything else again. Just go back to one thing and focus on what it is you're supposed to be focusing on. But feel free to abort. It's like, okay, you can find your place in anything. If you lose a tab, no big deal. If you lose your place in a book that you got distracted by, no big deal. You can find that later. Just abort. Just get rid of it, and then take a breath. Get back to the one thing that you're supposed to be focusing on. Tip number 17: work in shifts. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I'm a big fan personally of like the Pomodoro technique, which is when you set a work interval and a rest interval. It doesn't work for everybody and doesn't work every time. It depends on what sort of thing you're working on. But for instance, you'll often find me working on a report, like a psychological report, and at the same time, maybe playing a chess game online or, doing some exercises like using my resistance bands or doing sit-ups or watching something or playing a game, whatever, having some sort of leisure as well, and not forcing myself to multitask back and forth. But if I set like a 15-minute timer for working and then a 5 or 10-minute timer for rest or leisure, that can sometimes help break things up. And you can do that in a variety of ways. You can work for an hour and then be off for 20 minutes or half an hour. It's got to fit with your life. And then you also need to think about, okay, let's actually do the math here, right? So if I'm working in, 20-minute increments and I'm taking 10-minute breaks, okay, so these are 30-minute chunks. So how many 30-minute chunks is it going to take for me to actually get this work done? You can think about it that way. But whatever, whether it's taking breaks for movement or, doing something that's a little bit distracting, something that's nice for you, whatever it is, you can play around with working in shifts. But again, it has to work for you. So see how it goes. If you find that you're getting sucked too deep into these other things, then it's not working for you. But for some people, focusing too heavily on one thing for too long, you just slow to a crawl and you cannot focus anymore. And so you do need that break to come back to it. But be intentional about it. Set that timer, put boundaries in place. Don't let yourself get sucked into something, and be smart about it. Don't say like, okay, I'm going to, on my rest intervals, not my work intervals, on my rest intervals, I'm going to play this, online multiplayer game. That could take 10 minutes, but it could also take 30 minutes, but we'll see. Right? Don't do that. Give yourself something that's realistic so that you can actually keep that interval going. Tip number 18. This is one that's more relational, but I would advise to not use your partner, if you have a romantic partner, as a coach. And the same thing can go for like family members, people that are really close to you. I would advise you to not use them as a coach. And what I mean by that is don't tell them to keep you accountable for things. Don't tell them to, some amount of accountability is okay, but you don't need to fall into the role where they're essentially having to nag you about things or admonish you for things or say, oh, did you get this done today? Did you get that done? Maybe you should think about doing this. Maybe you should think about doing that, because that can really sort of sour the relationship between you guys. And it can turn your partner into somebody who feels like they're trying to control your behavior or be bossy or tell you what to do. And that can be a negative association. There are some people that do this just fine. If you guys are just, that's what you do, you support each other in these things, and you're able to not get in that mode where you're feeling resentful at each other for it, that's fine. But in many cases, trying to use your partner as the person to keep you on track is a recipe for disaster. That's where external people come in. That's where a coach might come in, or a therapist, or, people that online, communities, that can help you stay on track. All those things, those external places are better places to find that ongoing accountability and motivation. Just enjoy your time with your partner, and you can talk to them about what's going on, and they can encourage you and stuff like that. But you don't need to turn one another into sort of nags, right? That's just something that I often see happening in relationships where somebody's having ADHD or a mental health difficulty, and it sucks to see that resentment build when it doesn't need to be there. You don't need to do all that stuff for your partner because it doesn't work that way. I can't be my wife's therapist, when you're that close to the person, you can't help them the same way you could if they were some neutral person on the outside. So just personal advice, don't use your partner as a coach. Tip number 19, use the solution that works, whether it's perfect or not. This might change over time as well, but one thing that happens very, very often is we fall into the trap of fake productivity. You're, okay, I need to find a to-do list app. And then you realize you spent 3 hours trying to find the perfect app with the best reviews and the most integrated functionality and all this stuff. Don't do that. Find something, try it out. If it works, keep going with it. If it doesn't, try something else. And as I said, this will shift over time. There are months where I'm all over Google Keep. That's my main to-do list. I'm using that app for everything. And then there are times like right now where I'm just burning through physical notebooks because I'm doing better with it. And it's not the perfect solution. I'm wasting a bit of paper, which is not the most environmentally friendly, and it's, not the most elegant solution. And I have to know where my notebook is at all times, but it's working for me right now. And so I'm going to roll with it. The solution might not be perfect in like the aesthetic sense, or it might not be the type of thing that works for everybody else. But if it's working for you, I want you to embrace that and use it. So don't get yourself so caught up on finding the perfect tool. Just find the one that works. and, keep trying, be experimental with it. But when you find something that works, stick with it as long as it works. There's nothing wrong with that. And then number 20, this is my last one. My last tip is study yourself. Use yourself as, an experiment. Study yourself, with your journaling, with things that you've tried that went well or didn't, with whole experiences, like maybe a job you worked for, or a date you went on, or a vacation, whatever. Retrospectively, go back and look at what worked and what didn't. Break things down, try to figure out where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, what techniques helped, what things maybe didn't make a big difference, what things were huge detractors and pitfalls. But study yourself, give yourself the chance to go back and look at things that have already happened so that you can keep some things in mind for the future that might help you set yourself up for success. And those are my tips, guys. There are infinite more tips out there. These are just the ones that I think are particularly helpful, things that I've seen work, things that I appreciate using myself. But there are lots of different resources out there for adult ADHD. If you just do a quick Google search for adult ADHD tips or communities, they're out there. But again, don't fall into that fake productivity pitfall. Don't find the best online community for adult ADHD if you're going to spend 12 hours doing that and not get anything else done, right? Try using some of these tips and try just doing what works for you. And, you can start with one of these things or more, but each of these have their own place in your day and in your workflow. And I think if you're to integrate a few of these, you can make a difference for yourself. And, while you're going to continue having some of this attentional difficulty, likely, there are things that you can do, as I've talked about here, that you can, use to work with it instead of fighting against it so much. So hopefully these tips were helpful to you, whether or not you have, an ADHD diagnosis. And I will see you guys for the next episode. Take great care of yourselves. Stay safe. And